Welcome everybody to Sunday morning sitting group. Oh my gosh, Stephanie Nash is waiting to come in. Stephanie, I haven't seen you for years. Welcome, Stephanie Nash. So welcome to Sunday morning sitting group, everybody. My name is Trudy, and I'm the founding teacher here at InsightLA. And for those of you who are new to the sitting group, we'll sit together, we'll meditate. I do some guided meditation more on Zoom than when we're together in person, because I just feel like it's a little more distracting, but not a lot. There'll be plenty of silence and stillness where you can connect with yourself without my voice interrupting your thoughts. And yeah, that was a little joke. So we'll start with a meditation, then we have some teaching, and then some exchange, some dialogue with each other. So that's how our time together goes. And at 12:30, when we end, you're invited to just take a break, maybe get some lunch, depending which time zone you're in, and come back for breakout groups. Kemi will help put you in breakout groups where you have a chance to meet with a small group of people, just a few people, maybe 4 or 5. I'm not sure how that works. And get to know each other in a way it's not really so easy on Zoom as when we're all in the same physical space, co-present together. So let's begin. Oh, okay, Austin's going to help with the breakout groups. Thank you, Austin. And I want to introduce Kemi, who is our host this morning. She's waving at you with her mural that she painted behind her. Kemi is a musician, an artist, and actually our volunteer coordinator at InsightLA. Is that still your title? Maybe it's expanded now, but.
Yeah, it's a community relations manager now.
Ooh, okay, community relations manager. Okay, very good. Okay, so finding your, your comfortable posture. I'm going to just invite us to sit and calm our bodies down. Yesterday, we had a workshop with Kane Carroll, a Taoist master. I mean, actually, he's mastered lots of different healing traditions. And Dr. Josefa Rangel, who happens to be my doctor, my cousin Myra's doctor, and Jack's doctor. And they gave us some ways to calm the nervous system, some simple ways. And so this meditation, I'll just, we can't do all the things they taught, obviously, but I'm gonna just invite us to sit very, very present with our bodies in some of the ways that Kane did yesterday. So as you lower your gaze or close your eyes, imagine that you're not only stopping, looking out through the eyes and looking around, but actually drawing the gaze inward. Drawing your eyes. This is imagination, of course. Your eyes aren't going to actually move back in your head, but it's an energetic feeling, and you can actually connect with it. Just pulling the eyes in as though they've turned around and are looking inside. And then doing the same thing with the ears. We usually have our ears out, listening to the sounds of life around us. So just imagining drawing your ears in, listening to the skull, the brain, the inside of the head, listening to the total presence of the body. And grounding, you're listening to your neck, shoulders, arms and hands. The front of the body, the back of the body, the bottom and hips, legs and feet. Just feeling from top to bottom the whole body as one continuous field of sensation. And just feeling the weight settling evenly on the sitting bones. And you can feel this whether you're sitting or lying down. And then as you breathe in, imagining that you're spreading your sacrum. That's the bottom of the lower back, the bottom of the spine. But you're spreading your sacrum wide toward the hips. And softening the tailbone. And as I spread and relax the sacrum and the tailbone, I also like to imagine the outer corners of my eyes just drifting toward the temples, widening, drifting, opening, space in the face, relaxing the face. And then noticing the breath, gently breathing into this space of relaxation. Whole body breathing from head to toe. As if we're breathing like frogs, sitting and breathing with our skin. as if the whole body is gently expanding into the space around us with the inhalation, and then gently relaxing, contracting slightly with the out breath. Inhaling the aliveness of the moment, gently expanding into space around the body. As you breathe in and breathing out, relaxing, following the out breath as it dissolves into space and vanishes.
Hello. Hi, Leah.
Hey, thank you. And this gentle whole body breathing is a way of caring for our embodiment. This is called the postnatal state. We have air all around this body. In the womb, it was water, fluid, water element. Just sensing the space around the whole body. And allowing the body to completely relax into this open, receptive space. As we breathe in and out of this space that never pulls away from us. It's always here, consistent, continuous. Spacious presence we often overlook, in which we live and move and have our being. And whenever the mind wanders away, just coming back to this sense of inward space, drawing inward, feeling the inner space and the space all around as one continuity, as though the boundaries of the body are completely permeable. Inner space and outer space. Right here, right now. Space to breathe and be. And maybe sprinkling some gratitude and appreciation into the space around us and within us. Gratitude for our ability to be here and do this together. Appreciation for the aliveness of the body. All the elements that sustain this life. So last week, there was a comment in the chat that just kind of jumped out at me. And I think it was somewhat in response to something that Mel had said at the beginning of our time together. And it was, I didn't write it down or anything, but it was basically a remark about how Mel had made a reference to our current president, and it was basically a comment about how we really, political things don't belong at this kind of gathering or at InsightLA, and then there were some other comments which I didn't follow because I was teaching. I can see the chat, but not continuously. And I thought I would like to actually address this comment, because during these times, I think that we have here in this group, we've moved, it's been impossible to ignore what's happening in the world around us and simply come back to the ancient teachings of Buddhist psychology and philosophy. So today, and I want to just begin by acknowledging that I think more and more Americans are facing our history, looking at what Howard Zinn called the people's history, not just the history of governments and wars and treaties, but what happens to people. And as part of that, we are now acknowledging that the lands that we sit on and practice on, and there were people here before we occupied these lands, and we took them by force, the people and the lands. And here in Marin County, it was the coast Miwok tribe. For those of you in LA, it's either the Chumash, the Tongva, and we just acknowledge the ancestors that were here before us. And I like too to acknowledge our personal ancestors. I often say if you don't really want to acknowledge your family of origin, for there may be good reasons, just keep going back, imagining there's somewhere back there, there are definitely ancestors you would want to meet and respect, for whom you would have respect. So just a moment to acknowledge our ancestors and to say that the Buddha did not avoid political life. And the monasteries, our tradition, the insight meditation tradition, comes from early Buddhism. And in early Buddhism, there was no such thing as monasteries way out in the mountains, completely walled off from, the life around, from worldly life. That came later in the Mahayana. Well, the Mahayana tradition was actually a response to that having begun to happen later. But without going into the history of Buddhism, at least not today, just to acknowledge that in the time of the Buddha, the community that was gathered around this teacher, they had practices that brought them into relationship with wherever they lived, the village they were in or the town they were in. They were not allowed to keep any food from one day to the next. They were not allowed to cultivate any food themselves. They were 100% dependent on the community around them to feed them. And once a day would go out in this beautiful ritual alms round to gather the food. And that was the food for that day. They ate one meal. I can't imagine only eating one meal and the privilege that I have to eat whenever I feel like it. But Jack did it. He looked like a skeleton when he came out of the monastery because he needs to eat more than that. But anyway, he did it and they did it. And that tradition continues to this day in the Thai forest tradition where he practiced. But the point is that the Buddha, there was a connection and a living daily, everyday connection. And he intervened. There are stories in the suttas. He intervened. He interacted with kings and princes and rulers of all kinds, and he intervened to try and stop wars. He tried to save his people, the Shakyas, when they were being attacked. And I think the first time he succeeded, and then decades later, he did not, but he tried. And there's a story that I wanted to tell you. In his time, there were these two peoples, the Shakyas, which was his people, and the Kolyas, and they were building a dam between the city of Kapilavastu and Kolya for irrigating the fields. And a conflict broke out because, there was a drought one year. There wasn't much water, and people started to fight over the water, and then things got bitter and somebody hit somebody, and they were really having a full-on dispute that was going to become war, full-on war. And the Buddha used, according to legend, used his supernatural power to intervene, and came and appeared and levitated in front of both sides. Well, I don't know about that part, but the Buddha definitely intervened. And, they put down their weapons out of respect for the Buddha, who at that time was famous and respected. And the Buddha, because the way that he taught was always in these dialogues, inquiries with people. And he asked, so how did this quarrel start? What's the origin of this? And everybody, I don't know. Everybody, expressed their ignorance. And so he started with the army's chief commander, and he said, well, the person below me might know. And it just went on and on down the chain of people until the workers were questioned, and they said the quarrel is just about the water. And so then the Buddha said, is it really fitting for very little water to destroy each other's kingdoms? And he said, how much is a little bit of water worth? And they said, not that much. And then he said, well, how much is a whole jar of blood worth? Of your blood, of your people? And of course, worth a lot. And so he really asked both kings to reflect on their actions and to, and just saying that if, he said, I'm going to read it here. If I were not here, you would have let flow a river of much blood for a little water. And that's doing what should not be done. To live in strife. And he said, we live indeed so happily, unhating amid haters. Among those who are hateful, we dwell free from hate. And it goes on. And I've quoted this before because in terms of the pandemic, it's been very helpful, that those of us who are healthy, you can go among the afflicted in peace. And if you're experiencing joy, you can go among the troubled in peace and so forth. So I'm just using this example of how the Buddha was actually involved in the political life of his time. And that wasn't his main thing. He wasn't a ruler or a minister. He didn't have any political post. He was a contemplative and a renunciate. But he didn't hesitate sometimes to wade in where he thought that he might be able to promote peace and prevent war. And so what does this mean for us today? I wanted to quote some of a few of the voices that I respect who are activists and contemplatives. And I'm going to start with the Venerable Dr. Panavati. Venerable Panavati used to come to InsightLA on a regular basis every year. She's an African-American Buddhist nun who has done a lot of work in India with the Dalit people, formerly the untouchables. And she's just been an activist her whole life and also a deep practitioner, meditation practitioner. And, she said, she was talking about this question of activism and the question of, how do we reconcile this sense of interconnectedness and interdependence that I talked about last week, this sense of oneness with the actual dualities and paradoxes of, of our life here, our human life, that, does that mean we shouldn't take sides? Does that mean we should never talk about these things at our meditation gatherings? What does it mean that on a relative level, we have all of these political problems and white supremacy and racial injustice and poverty and at the from the absolute perspective or the non-dual perspective or the perspective that we can touch to in moments of utter peace and freedom in our meditation, what about that? Do we just try to ignore that which is not bringing us to liberation in our contemplative life? What do we do? And so I like what Panavati said. She said, some people want to do a good thing, but they haven't taken the route of discipline to subdue their own demons. So their action carries the energy of where they are. In other words, the energy of whatever our demons may be. It's incumbent upon us to find out where we are, to get to know ourselves is what we're doing here in so many different ways. And those of you who come regularly, that, the guided meditations, they change. I mean, they have obviously similar elements, but they change week to week. We're getting to know ourselves from many different angles and many different parts of who we are and elements that go into our being. So she says the action carries the energy of where we are, and it's incumbent upon us to find that out. Where are we? Count up the cost before you go into battle. And And the other thing she talked about is, we may not see the fruit of some of the things that we work for in this life, but that doesn't mean we don't do them. We plant seeds and we give our best energy, and we trust that in due season, those kinds of seeds will bear fruit. And I think too, again, those, when you practice for a while, you come to see that these practices that promote peace and love and so on, they're also practices that challenge our assumptions about life, that challenge our identifications, and certainly challenge our limited perspectives. And in the process of doing that, what we discover, of course, is our common humanity, that we're more alike than we are different. This is the birthplace of true humanity, to be able to include and identify with everybody. And these teachings really give us a step-by-step process of how to do this, whether it's the step-by-step of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of how the feeling tone of experience, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, mindfulness of our mind states, our thoughts and emotions, and then awareness of how it all fits together to form what we call this self, this identity of who we are. And also step by step in the sense of the 4 Noble Truths, understanding, which we talked about last week in relation to climate and the environment, Susan Murcott's talk about the 4 Noble Truths, understanding that yes, we can't deny, we have to acknowledge the suffering in the world, and we can understand its causes. The Buddha, in that line of questioning, he was trying to understand, what is the cause of this fight, and we can understand the causes of our suffering, and that allows us to find ways to stop it or to allow it to gradually get less and less and less till our hearts are free. And then the 4th truth, of course, they call these the Buddhist facts of life. The 4th truth is all the practices that we learn to be able to embody this kind of freedom. Practices of, our understanding, our perspective, our views of the world, our intentions for our life, awareness of the impact of who we are through our speech and through our actions and behaviors and through the work that we do in the world, the cultivation of focus and concentration and the ability to settle down and calm down and really be present in our meditation and our post-meditation lives, and the wisdom and love that come out of these steps, whether we call them steps to happiness or steps to freedom. And the more we practice, the more we see that our freedom it's here in our own hearts, and our unfreedom is here in our own hearts too. And what mindfulness does for us is show us where we get in our own way, where we trip ourselves up, and we can examine some of the stories that we tell ourselves about our place in this world and the life that we're living, and where we might be supporting our growth in freedom and capacity to love, and where we might be actually undermining or sabotaging that for ourselves. And so it's very practical. This is all very practical psychology, practical liberation. It's very, very practical. And I think, what I most wanted to share with you is this intersection between our spiritual or contemplative life and our everyday life, where we may be political activists or not. We all have different expressions of this path through our own bodies and our own ways of living. And we don't, the question of taking sides, Dawa Phillips said, instead of taking sides, let's take a stand. Let's take a stand in this life for our values and the things that we really care about. Cain and Josefa yesterday were talking in a way, not these words, but for taking a stand for our own embodiment, for taking care of the life that is expressed in this body and nurturing that. So I wanted to also quote somebody that I don't know, but who was a voice at one of the meetings that was for African American teachers, Buddhist teachers. And I think the first meeting was in New York. Then the second one was at Spirit Rock. This is a wonderful new tradition to gather the people of African heritage to explore their experience in what has been largely white meditation centers, and understanding that the practices that we do of loving awareness, of Buddhist psychology and philosophy, the practices that we teach and do in our lives, that these are practices for everybody, but that the way they have been expressed are often, I would say, unconsciously racist. And we've really had to look at, can we be as fair and consistent and inviting in a completely embracing sense, not me inviting you, but just like the space around our bodies invites us to be here. And that space, Kane was saying yesterday, it never pulls away from us, and it never intrudes on us. It's just here. Understanding, can we sort of decolonize? People talk about decolonizing the mind. What does that mean? It means looking at the assumptions and the perspectives that we may have inherited unquestioningly from people we love and respect, but that need to be questioned and examined. I was studying, I didn't know about the work of a Black feminist theologian named Dolores Williams. And I was just fascinated with her work. She was doing the work on intersectionality way before, I think, Kimberly Crenshaw coined that term. And it's so inspiring, I think. For me, it's inspiring to see the ways that I've been blind and haven't, questioned my assumptions, and how they may have been affecting the ways that I communicate, or the things that I take for granted that may be excluding you or your experience. To me, this is a very exhilarating process. And yes, it's hard because we have to, Kemi, people are still arriving, and can you keep an eye out? Thanks. It's hard because we have to let go of some very cherished, perhaps, ways of viewing the world, or at least, create a little more space in them for other ways and other perspectives. And it's hard because when we're passionate and committed to the things we care about, it can be really hard to acknowledge that the other side may have some valid things that they care about, and values that, aren't all bad. And I'm not being President Trump talking about white supremacists. I'm just talking about us, each other, and the people we meet in our everyday lives. And while, of course, some of us may have had those views too, I'm guessing that if you're here at InsightLA, that's not where you're coming from anymore. But I welcome, we all have had certain biases and prejudices, and all of us in one way or another. And part of freeing our hearts is looking at this and understanding we actually are in charge, not of our aging, not of our being born, not of are dying. We're not in charge. The Dharma, there are impersonal processes that we're learning to make friends with and live good lives, in the light of these more immutable truths. But we are in charge of how we keep our minds and how we keep our hearts, and of our own healing from whatever wounding has happened in our lives. And it's happened to everybody, because this is what it's like to be a human being. And so I wanted to actually end these remarks with a quote from Dr. Camilla Majid, whom I don't know, but became acquainted with some of her work this morning. And she says, we're all so deeply connected as humans, and we do have the compassion and the capacity to alleviate each other's suffering. Isn't that beautiful? We do. Gwendolyn Brooks, a wonderful African-American poet, Gwendolyn Brooks said, we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. I think that's really beautiful and really inspiring, and that we here in our group at InsightLA, in our lives, can really hold multiple perspectives. We can hold the paradox. We don't like paradoxes. We want one side or the other to be true. It's seems like it would be so much more comfortable, but it's an illusory comfort, really, to be able to hold the paradoxes of this life and of our personal lives too, and sense and remember that we can alleviate each other's suffering, that we are each other's harvest, that we are each other's business in that way, and that we are each other's magnitude and bond, greatness and connection. So this is what I want to share with you this morning in response to that comment I noticed last week in the chat. And now I want to invite those of you who might want to ask a question about your practice. It doesn't have to be about what I've said. I can see that Carol's got her hand up already. And yeah, questions, reflections. I don't like to say Q&A anymore. Questions and reflections, because I don't have all the answers. So yeah, Kemi.
Caroline is here, Trudy, so she's gonna take over.
Okay, thanks for stepping in, Kemi.
Yeah, anytime.
And welcome, Caroline. Can you call on?
Good morning, Trudy.
Carol, you can unmute yourself, and Caroline will take over after this. Good morning. Hi.
Good morning to you, Trudy. Good morning, everybody. I haven't had audience for a long time, but this is a moment in my life and my journey to support these magnificent teachings that Trudy has given me for about 10 years now.
Wow.
Yes, we are in charge of our own hearts and minds. I'm in charge of that today as I share with you that I help my darling husband cross over at this moment in time. He's COVID positive. He's home with me. I have the most amazing team. We are bedside, gowned, and protected as much as possible. And I'm so honored to be able to be leading this team to help him transition and complete his work on his journey right here in his home with all of us by his side. Trudy, you and your teachers have helped me groom myself for this very, very precious moment. It is so sweet. It is so painful. It is so right. And I'm just here to say thank you. I'm on bended knee of gratitude and love and open heart to tell everyone here this journey is one of the most powerful experiences in my nearly 6 years. And without the teachings, I would never be able to voice my opinion today. So thank you, Trudy, and all of your profound teachers for grooming me for this most precious moment.
Wow, thank you, Carol, and send so much love to you and Erwin. And for those of you who can see Carol's background, there's a picture of her and her Erwin behind the white heart and under the white orchid. Oh, it's been such a long journey, Carol. Carol has lived with Erwin's dementia for many years, and Erwin happened to, among his many other accomplishments, be an accomplished pianist. And when she realized that he could still play the piano and enjoy the music and how much it enlivened him, she started an informal group of people with Parkinson's and other, dementia-related illnesses who were musicians. And they formed a band called The Fifth Dementia. And that work has expanded really around the world at this point, thanks to your efforts, Carol. And I just really want to celebrate all that you've done with the teachings that you received. Thank you. And much love to you and Erwin, of course. Now look in the chat, Carol, because I'm sure lots of people are going to be talking to you.
Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing, and I'm sure everyone's sending love and everything. And Adam, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, thanks. So I was in Maui for New Year's. I was invited by a friend, and I was just enthralled by it. I was kite surfing and loving it, and meeting all sorts of friendly people and whales jumping out of the water and all of these bliss experiences. And of course, you're never supposed to do this, but I thought, well, maybe I'll move here. You know, you're not supposed to do this when you're on vacation. And
who says?
Right? So I started to, I have a remote job, so I can do this. You know, I don't have a family where I don't have an immediate family, no wife or kids. And I started to look at places, and it was very, very difficult because the market is tough. And it's really hard to find a place to live in the rental market, and it's incredibly expensive. I'm learning things as I'm going about it's incredibly expensive to buy. And I'm learning about the disparity of income and the indigenous population, and I'm kind of getting a broader perspective beyond the bliss. And each time I came home from a visit, back to my friend's house from a visit, to a rental property, I would say to myself, I hope I don't get it. I hope they don't, because there's so many applicants. I don't want to get it, because then I don't want to have to decide. And finally, I received an offer to live there. My application was approved by this one place, and it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It was, and Trudy, I know you know Maui, it was in Haiku, in acres and acres of just beautiful, beautiful land, and so many
So
So
what happened, Adam? What happened?
I'm having a hard time. So as soon as I got the word that I could live there, and the price was reasonable, and it's the same rent. I overrode the confusion by forcing myself to decide that I wasn't ready to decide, that I'm in a space of mourning for so much loss during COVID. So my father and so many family members, and it feels like it feels like almost an unnecessary process to try to
So Adam, I'm just because we have other people
I
and
know.
I'm
I know.
gonna just,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
thank you.
jump in. And is that okay? Can I
Yes,
jump?
please. Thank you.
I think maybe what's happening with you is a kind of fear that this decision is based on, wanting to run away from the mourning and the grief and the sadness of
Yeah.
the losses that your family has sustained during COVID. At the same time, you felt joyful, you felt enlivened. And it reminds me of what the Buddha was saying, that you can go in joy, even among the sad people. You can go in wellness, even among those who are unwell. You can go, you have a right to go. Maui is a very healing place. You can heal your heart and your grief and your despair on Maui. And you can also come back if you want. You're young, I can see that. And you can come back if you need to. But Maui, Ram Dass always talked about what a healing place Maui was for him. And I mean, you can tell by the number of healers on Maui, So given that you have accepted the offer, there's always some, what do they call it? Buyer's remorse, when you second guess yourself after you make a big decision. And sure, maybe you pushed yourself to make that decision because you needed to make a decision. But like I said, I just feel that that impulse to go where you felt alive and joyful and connected is a good one to follow. It's a good intuition to follow. Yes, it is. And yes, you can cry and you can grieve and you can mourn what you're leaving behind or what you still need to deal with, but you're not going to run away from your own mind. You know that. It's going to be there with you, right with you on Maui.
Oh, that mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can work with it very beautifully on Maui, just like you can here. You'll have to get up a little earlier to come to sitting group. That's all.
It's perfect. 9 a.m. Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself. Have a safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing. Is there anyone else who would like to share or have any reflections for the day? If you do, feel free to raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, is that where it is? Oh,
Yeah, I think they updated it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, because it used to
All
be
right.
participants and it was confusing. Yeah.
Yes. So, Laura, if you would like to go ahead and unmute, I see you found the button.
Hi, all. Wow, the sharing this morning, reflections have been really moving and powerful. Thank you. And Trudy, of course, I don't like to actually unmute myself, but I really just have been so much gratitude before coming this morning and during my meditation. I was up in my mind, not my body as much. And Carol said 10 years, and I never know exactly when I came to you, to InsightLA, but I know I took Alan Weiss's course and Santa Monica, InsightLA was facing the other way than when we left it. And I've gotten so much in these past years. I've learned so much. I had no idea of the language. Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, everything, and I'm learning all that. I took Dedicated to the Dharma. I'm always taking classes. Big shout out today, Frank Ostecki. I don't know if I say that correctly, but I've heard him once before.
Ostaseski. It's a tough one.
Ostecki. Well, he's at InsightLA, and then tomorrow you're doing with Thomas and Sharon, MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yeah, so there's just so much that you offer, and I'm just filled with gratitude. And I was exchanging an email with Anissa about my contributions because I was looking at my year-long where I spent money. And you're right. The more you give, it's amazing what I have gotten. And I used to be like, I can only do $50 a month. I can only do 100. No, not true. Not true. And during COVID, hey, I put all my gas money to InsightLA because I'm not really going anywhere. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll have to, I don't know, we'll have to have you make a video or something for fundraising. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. And really on a, little more sober note, tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, and in honor of Dr. King, the Presidential Inauguration Committee is hosting a day of service. And of course, that's what Dr. King wanted everybody to do in his name, was service. And so this day of service I think it's a way for the new administration to say, we are taking this pandemic so seriously and we're addressing it, because all of the day of service events are oriented around COVID and how to support people either with food or rent, or our contribution is mental health. Of course, that's what we do. And so InsightLA will be participating in this day of service by offering some simple mindfulness and loving kindness practices. Sharon and Thomas and I think it's late afternoon tomorrow. You can, Caroline can put it in the chat for you. But so I'm glad that you referenced that, Laura, because this is a way that we really, all of us, can help each other by being here, by supporting InsightLA, by practicing together, by facing our demons, so that what we do in this life can come from, a more heartfelt, clear place. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, for bringing that sense of service and gratitude to our attention. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Oh, yes, mate, I know I'm mispronouncing it.
It's okay. It's Maite.
Maite,
Yeah.
you're welcome to share.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Carol, for sharing. That's beautiful what you said. And as a caregiver for people, my parents both with Alzheimer's, it brought me to think something that I've been thinking about, because I remember when Sharon Salzberg was here at Insight, and she was talking about compassion fatigue and how it doesn't really, it's sort of an oxymoron if it is true compassion. I remember she said compassion was like a trembling of the heart when it sees pain. And I could really identify with that. But there are times dealing with compassion for others, even self-compassion, that it is quite painful too, that it becomes more of just that empathy of emotions. So I didn't know if you could just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, it's relevant because so many of us are also experiencing pandemic fatigue right now. It just, no end in sight really, except for the vaccinations, which is a good thing. However you may feel about vaccinations in general, and I know that little kids maybe get too many of them all at once or something, but really, I do encourage everybody to maybe set aside some of your long-held vaccination views for the sake of, um, of of everybody and of our life together in this country. But I don't know. I don't know what Sharon meant when she said that, Maite, but I do know that there is definitely a way that we can get overwhelmed by the suffering of the world, or just the suffering, having both parents have need care because they both have Alzheimer's. This is a lot to hold, and so to me that it's actually real, that that phenomenon, in the sense that you can feel that way for sure, but it's not real in the sense that it's insoluble, or that we can't take on lots of, deal with lots of suffering in the world without losing our stability. We can. And I think what I would say about that is to make sure that you are taking really good care of yourself. Because what happens with this so-called compassion fatigue is that we leave ourselves out of the circle of compassion, and we get very focused outward on helping and just lose our balance somewhat, because the self-care, the kindness to yourself, I mean, all of this that arises from your practice can help you stabilize and have the strength to, I'm not turning this into an abstract question, I'm making it about you and me and, all of us. It can help us have the stability and steadiness to keep our hearts open, even if we have to take a break. One of the most committed activists I know, lifelong, intensely committed activists, also a Buddhist practitioner, texted me that they won't be at the sitting group because they're going on vacation for a much needed time away. Now, how they're traveling and all of that, I don't know, but they're leaving this country and going on vacation. And to me, that I just celebrate that, because that's what's going to allow them to continue their work on behalf of all beings. So I don't know if that's, tell me more where you're coming from when you ask, and I don't know if that's helpful to you.
Well, my parents, they've both passed as well, so I'm out of that in terms of the day-to-day of it. But that just always struck me how, I know that it's a compassion is a heart of joy, of she said, moving towards something if we can help. And I guess it's that sometimes it's the pain of it, the pain of being with someone, or even our own pain does become that there isn't joy in it, that it's that there's a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow when you hear things, or from others or from yourself, that I guess maybe I'd need to just sit with that and so that it can then the exploration of, well, what can I do? But oftentimes there is a lot of tears, a lot of when someone else is expressing something, or I work with a lot of the helplines now, and it just hurts. It does hurt. It doesn't just feel like, oh, joy that I'm here for you or offering help.
Maite, I cry many times a day.
Okay.
I really do. I don't sit and sob for hours, but I have tears, and sometimes do just actively cry many times a day. My heart is touched by others and what is going on with our world. And And I think in this tradition, compassion includes not just feeling the feelings, but like you said, being then able to do something. It's like, yes, you feel the pain and you do something. And it could be one tiny thing. It doesn't have to be committing your whole life to it, but you do something. As for the joy, I don't know, to be honest. To me, it's more like freeing my heart from just the pain, because helping, being of service really does help.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's always joyful though. But you could sprinkle a little joy on it, I suppose, and make it a little more joyful. Yeah. Mostly my time, what I would say to you is, and I'm saying this to myself, try not to oppress yourself with the teachings. And you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm supposed to be joyful, but I'm on a helpline hearing people's agony all day long. And frankly, I don't feel very joyful. Do you know what I'm saying? Just stay with the truth of how it is for you and realize that whatever Sharon may have said was true for her in that moment. And maybe she's crying right now. You know what I mean? We don't know. The point is that it's very kaleidoscopic, these emotions and the way we move and shift around in them. And that's important to remember when we're suffering, especially.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, we have a few more minutes, I think. Hold on. Yeah, Deborah.
Hi, I was just really quick, just to piggyback. Am I talking? Okay. I don't know if I get my hand's still up. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. Just both what you were saying and what Mata was saying. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. My mother has schizophrenia, actually schizoaffective disorder. And so I've been in that role of caretaker. She's far away from me, but and now because of COVID, she hasn't been in her program, or I realized not getting her medication for the last year. So everything's sort of falling off the deep end here. But I realized last night the awareness that I can't fix her all the time. And I actually, I'm going to start crying. I was like, oh my gosh, when it sort of parallels, I don't know, maybe agree, or with Alzheimer's, it's like mentally I'm coming, she's not there mentally for me. And I think what you're saying about the joyfulness, there's not joyfulness, but just the sense of awareness. What you're Trudy saying is giving sort of a calmness to me, the sense that this isn't joyful, this is real. And I work with people too, with really painful situations, some difficult, I counsel. This isn't about, I know, I don't know, I'm very new to this practice. So I think that there's this idea that there's supposed to be joy. I think what I'm finding is the awareness is giving more joy, in the sense that it's a relief to know that we don't have to be happy and joyful all the time, that this is just being real.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
I said to Maite, don't oppress yourself with the teaching. There's no should of how you're supposed to feel all the time. First of all, nobody feels the same all the time. This is the truth of change. It's always changing when we're attentive and actually mindful and actually notice. But secondly, just what you said, Deborah, it's the awareness. That's the relief. And out of that will come joy. Maybe not at the moment when your mom is losing it and you're far away and her services aren't there and sounds like her meds that stabilize her aren't even there. That's not joyful, you're right. And for you to try to pretend to be joyful when you're not is sort of the worst side of affirmations, the kind of denial. So I just want to support you feeling whatever it is you're feeling and understanding that's the truth. That's the truth. It's the truth of this moment. It's not the overarching truth of who you are, but it's the truth of this moment, and it's yours. And so you're allowed to inhabit it fully. And the more you do, of course, the more quickly it will change, because it's the things that we hold on to. It's just, I don't know, it's one of those paradoxes that the things that are painful and that we don't like, somehow through that energy of resisting them, they last longer and hang around longer.
Yeah, I think it's just that awareness that this is real and I have to go through it, and that's it. You know, I have to go through it, and it's like the truth will set you free. That's so cliche. It feels true.
Cliches become cliches because they hold some truth.
Yeah, but the truth is what we have to work with.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you very much.
And thank you for your support. I really appreciate this group. It's been helping a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate the follow-up, and I see that a lot of it is me, the inner critic of, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? Oh, this isn't how compassion's supposed to feel. So that's the whole self-compassion courses that I've been taking and working on. Thank you, though.
Yeah, and the mindful self-compassion course is really helpful with this. If you can take it, if you can find one and take it, we have them, and it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, I've taken it with Lisa, and that's just been like a mind-blowing, really, really, of how I see myself, and what's the most important thing to do is to be gentle. It's very foreign, but extremely powerful. Thank you.
So powerful. And I think Janet's point is good too. She said, after taking care of my father, I felt joy that I took care of him, but not at the time. And I think that's really often how it is. So thank you for that, Janet. Let's now close by just sitting for a minute together. And we close this period of study and practice together, of listening to teachings and listening to our own hearts, meditating, sharing. We offer our gratitude for this privilege and opportunity. And we express that gratitude by just imaginatively sharing the goodness of our practice, whatever has been helpful, sharing with all beings everywhere without exception. Just take a moment to appreciate your own determination and effort to learn and do the practices, to sustain a practice by coming and sitting together, and to share the blessings, to share the goodness with all those whose lives you touch, simply by being your own best self, your calmest, most loving, most understanding, most caring self in relation to your life and everyone in it. May we and all beings be safe. May we be well. May we be happy. And may we live with ease. May we live with ease means may we free our hearts. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your presence and your practice. I'm so happy to see you all. I tell you week after week, you're my social life. It's really great to see you all. And yeah, I hope that you can take a break and come back and be in a breakout group and get to know each other. And I look forward very much to seeing you all next week. You can unmute yourselves and say hi, goodbye, and
Hi, goodbye.
week.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Judy.
Thank
Thank
you.
thank you.
Thank
you, Trudy.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Bye.
Thank
Have
you,
a nice
everybody.
day.
Bye.
Bye.
Another wonderful Sunday morning. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Thank you.
Bernard.
Bye. Sorry I can't do the breakout today. I regret it, but I've got to go.
You'll come back
Okay.
to it next week.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye, Bernard.
Love you guys. Bye.
I love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Trudy. Love you too.
Love you too. Oh, hi, Mag. I see you.
Thanks, Trudy.
Thank you all. Bye. And thank you, Caroline, too.